In this video, I'm going over 6.1 notes. I'm going to only do the odd questions so that I have room to show my work. And I'm going to scribble these out so we don't get confused on where the numbers are coming from. So on question 1, when I use the quadratic formula, it is, I'm going to write it at the top, negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. These a, b, c letters come from the quadratic function ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So when I look at question 1, the variable squared is my a. There's no number on it, so a will equal 1. I look at the middle term with the 1 variable. It has no number. B is a 1, and c is the constant at the end, negative 2. We then plug it in to the formula, and I like to put parentheses where all the letters are. So that I can just plug the 1 in here, the 1, A was also a 1, 1, and then C was a negative 2. So I'm just going to plug those in. B, A, C. Now I will calculate. So when I calculate it, I have a negative 1 right here. That's just going to stay a negative 1. Oh, that's okay without me typing it in. 2 times 1 is 2. Now the inside of the root I will type in. I'm going to type all of it in with the parentheses. So parenthesis 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 2 is a 9. Now I'm going to check the square root of 9. That gives me a 3. The only thing I changed was the root 9 becomes a 3. Now I can break up my answer into 2. I'm going to have an answer where it says negative 1 plus 3 over 2. Negative 1 plus 3 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is a 1. My second answer, when I split it, will be negative 1 minus 3. Negative 1 minus 3 is a negative 4. Divided by 2 is negative 2. Hopefully you can still see that. That's a negative 2. So when I solve this, my answers are 1, comma, and negative 2. Let's try again. I have my quadratic formula equal to 0. A is a 2. B is a 1. C is a negative 3. Negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plug in b, a, c. This is a negative 1. I'm going to type that in a second. 2 times 2 is 4. When I type it in, I have 1 squared minus 4 to negative 3. And I make sure that's a big minus. This is a little negative. 25. When I square root 25, it makes a 5. I'm going to make it into the whole number. Okay. Now I check what is it when I add it. Negative 1 plus 5. Negative 1 plus 5 is 4 over 4. That makes a 1. And when I separate for my second answer, negative 1 minus 5 over 4, that is negative 6. That is not going to be a whole number, so I'm just going to reduce it. 6 cut in half is 3, 4 cut in half is 2. And and I can't reduce it anymore. So it's okay to get whole numbers and fractions. These are rational values. A is a 2, B is -4, C is a 2. Negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plug in b, a, c. Double negatives make it into a positive 4. You can put a plus sign on it if you want. 2 times 2 is 4. And in the root, I'm going to have -4 squared minus 4 to -2. This gives us a decimal. This one we are going to skip because we can't square root it. It is actually an irrational answer. And we are doing those in 6.3 notes. So we're just going to stop there on that one. This one, when I typed it in, it was a decimal, so it's not a rational solution. You won't have nice numbers at the end. Question 7. This one is going to also be tricky because I'm missing a term. I'm missing the middle term. And the reason I know I'm missing the middle term is because here's a squared. Squared is a, so whatever number is on it is the a. And this is the constant. There's no letter on it. That's why it's the c. Then there's no other letters, which means b is 0 because it's missing from the middle. Negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plug in b, a, and c. That will make a 0. If you want to put -0, totally fine. Same thing as just putting a 0. Over 2 times 1 is 2. Zero squared minus 4ac square root of 100. Okay, perfect. This is a good one. The last one didn't work. This one square roots. So I have plus or minus 10 over 2. Now I can separate. I have 0 plus 10 over 2. That's just 10 over 2. Makes a 5. Then if I subtract 10, it's actually a -10 that time, which would make a -5 for the solution. Question 9. It's not equal to 0, so I need to fix it. I'm going to subtract 2. That will give me m squared minus 5m minus 24 equal to 0. Now I can say that a is a 1, b is a -5, and c is a -24. Plug in b, a, c. Double negatives make it a +5. 2 times 1 is 2. I'm going to see what goes in the root. -5 squared minus 4 times 1 times -24. 121. Now I'm going to square root 121, which becomes an 11 when I take it out of the radical. Separate answers. 5 plus 11 would be 16 over 2, that's an 8. Then I would have 5 minus 11 over 2, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. That'd be a negative 6 over 2. That makes a negative 3. Okay, once again, on your assignment, if you get multiple fractions, if you get a fraction and a fraction, that is fine. It's okay to get fractions. Just leave them as a fraction. Don't do them as a mixed fraction. For the ACT questions, what are the values of x that are solutions to the equation? I can use the same formula and say that A is a 1, B is a 3, C is a 2. Plug it in. Some of you will get to a point where you don't even have to write this out. You can just calculate it. So that'd be negative 3 plus or minus the square root over 2 times 1 is 2. 3 squared minus 4. 3 squared minus 4 AC is a 1. Oops, sorry, I didn't switch colors. When I square root 1, it outputs a 1 without the root on it. And then I can find what my top, negative 3, I keep almost dropping that, negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2 over 2. And negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4 over 2. So when I look for my solutions, negative 1 and negative 2, it's right there. On the second ACT question, I have that A is a 3, B is a negative 16, C is a negative 12, and if you drop the negatives, it will mess up the formula, so be careful not to drop negatives. Okay. Plug them in. B, A's, C's. This makes a 16. 2 times 3 is 6. I'm going to see what the root will be. Negative 16 squared minus 4AC, 400. When I square root 400, it's 20. So then I will do 16 plus 20. So when you type it in, make sure you're doing 16 plus 20, enter, and then divide it by the 6. That eliminates part of our questions. So because I know it's a 6, those two are eliminated. Now I have 16 minus 20 over 6. So I would do 16 minus 20. And then if I divide by 6, let's say you struggle with reducing fractions, click the math button on your TI-84, enter, and it will reduce it. It cuts the 4 in half to a 2 and the 6 in half to a 3. That means our answer is